spooky friends. This is John, your host for the Paranormal Podcast, Dairyland Frights, that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest. And today, guys, I'm throwing you a little bit of a curveball, but a spooky curveball. I use it in a baseball term. I have Brian and Brad from Paranormal Coffee. Welcome, Brian and Brad.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. How's it going?
Great. And the reason I say I threw in a curveball, because usually I have paranormal investigators, I have, authors, I have witches, I have all these different people. I've never had paranormal people who make coffee. So this is great. This is awesome. So really, one of the main things, and I've interviewed a number of paranormal investigators, they get tired, right, guys? They've been out there all night, all day. They're long nights. Hey, man, I need a little caffeine to pep me up and get me going again. Get me right back out until I want to do that investigation and not fall asleep in the car. So here's my first question is, why did you guys start Paranormal Coffee? What was the reasoning or the way you wanted to start it?
Well, the story we started with Brian was in visiting where I'm at. I'm in a little town in Western New York, right outside Hinsdale. If you know the name, we've got the Hinsdale House. It's quite a, what's that?
I said, oh yeah, I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah, so we were out visiting that, and that was fresh in our minds. And a week or so later, he left, and I was walking through the grocery store, walking down the craft beer aisle. And it's like, wow, look, every one of these labels is colorful and just fun, and everyone has a story, and it's just real exciting to look at. A couple aisles later, I turned and was walking down the coffee aisle, like, this is boring. There's like nothing here. It's like no stories. There's just like Folgers and one or two other things. And this was before Black Rifle or anything like that was on the shelves. So kind of had that in the back of my mind. And my commute to work is about an hour through the middle of nowhere. So I don't get a whole lot of cell phone signal or anything else. So I got too much time to think. And for some reason, I thought it would be funny if a medium drank medium roast coffee. So a couple miles down the road, then just the name Paranormal Coffee came to my head, and just all went downhill from there. We just brainstorming and fun stuff, and talked to Brian, and we got moving on it.
Yeah. So Brian, what can you add to that? What did you think when Brad came to you? You say, you're crazy. I don't know what's going on with you.
Well, it wasn't even, so we really didn't have any conversation about it when we went to see the Hinsdale house, and we didn't actually go into the house. We punched it into the GPS, drove into the parking lot, seen it. I personally had never heard about it up to that point. Since then, I've watched many investigations that go in there, but we seen it. We talked about the house, and then I'm home a couple of weeks later. What do you think about doing a coffee company? And this was probably November timeframe, and our goal was let's get it started by the first of the year. Between now and then, we'll get the legwork down, and we'll get it started. So I had access to a little bit of seed money that I was able to get us kind of off the ground with just all the initial costs that it takes to get licensing and LLCs and all that stuff set up.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, you're the business person. I've just been, I'm just a knuckle dragging contractor. I've been working overseas for a bunch of years. I'm very familiar with coffee because it's the only thing that got me through, 10 years in Iraq. Yeah. So I said, if you want to run with it, 100%, behind you, and let's just bounce ideas off. And we kind of started off with one or two labels, and that quickly grew into, what we probably have 6 or 8 labels now.
Yep.
With more ideas coming.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just some fun stuff. We would come up with a name, and we're like, okay, that's a cool name. How can we put a label to encompass that name? And as
Right.
small as the world is, or as luck would have it, one of Brad's neighbors is a graphic designer. And
Nice.
he brought her into the mix and said, well, this is our idea. How can you put this name and this idea, onto a label?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you guys were starting out, like, how did you start out? Did you just call coffee makers, or did you make your own, or did you call local shops? How did you get this all started?
I found a roaster out of California that does full roasting, so it just came down to marketing and the sales end of it, and getting word out and trying to figure out how to best get us top of mind and into the anything paranormal market.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what got me on board with it. Was he found a roaster out in Temecula, California, and they do small batch, basically made to order roasts. So you don't have, and we don't have product on the shelves or even in the home stockpiled. It's when you go online and you order, when you go through Amazon and order, or on the website and order, it's made or ground when you order it. So before the coffee ever reaches room temperature, it's bagged and it's ready to be shipped.
Nice.
So it's not boutique coffee, but it is definitely fresher than what you would find sitting on a shelf for, 4 weeks before it is sold.
Yeah. So that leads me to my next question. What makes Paranormal Coffee different from other coffee brands?
It's that small batch fresh roast to order. With coffee is a very complex product, and as soon as it comes off the roaster, you've got all sorts of organic compounds and anything flavorful. It gases off. It's constantly gassing off, and the sooner you get it from the roaster, the more flavor and aroma and just goodness that's in it, that like any of these grocery store shelf coffees, they've been sitting in warehouses and on trucks and on shelves for 4, 6, 8 months before you ever see it. So you lose all that. Go around telling everybody it's bag tagged and shipped to your doorstep before it reaches room temperature.
Yeah, that is often awesome, because that is freshness, right? That you want to have, rather than, the good old days when my mom had Sanka. Do you guys remember Sanka? You old enough for that? Yeah,
I can't tell you what it tastes like, but I do know the can.
Oh, yeah. I made a mistake when I was 16 trying to be a big man. I was going to have some coffee in the morning, right? Took me up to Sanka. I know I'm really dating myself here, guys. Take out the Sanka, made the coffee. I spit it out in the sink. Like, this is the worst I've ever had.
The one thing that I can say that this coffee does have or doesn't have is the acidic taste that you would get, or the
oh, sure.
That's, I mean, not to name other brands, but some of the more popular, some of the giant popular brands out there that I would drink, that we would have them overseas all the time. I got heartburn all the time, and that, to me, not knowing, that's just what it is. When you drink coffee at night before you go to work, you're going to have some heartburn.
Yeah, absolutely.
These, I'm not the chemist, I'm not the coffee guru, but this stuff, I don't know if it's the fresh roastness, but it doesn't give you, there's no acidity to it at all. Very smooth. Doesn't matter if it's the lighter roast. I prefer the dark roast. I've always liked dark roast coffee. No acidity, no acid reflux or any issues.
I love that. That is something that I know when I drink coffee is very important to me, that I just haven't had, it's hard to find sometimes, you know what I mean? And you go some places and you try their coffee. It's like, it's hit or miss, right? You're kind of like, it's Russian roulette with coffee. It's like, oh, what am I going to get? So I have to ask, which flavor is your favorite, guys? Brad,
I'm a Nightmare Fuel guy.
Nice.
The darker, the better. Yep.
Nice. Brian?
So that's the Italian blend, and I like that one because I had a lot of input in designing the label, and it's probably my favorite label is the Nightmare Fuel. The one that I have, this, I get Omen comes to the house every week.
Nice.
That's the one that we get. That's the one that we've been using. We'll take it traveling with us to make it in hotels when we're out. That's my subscription flavor right there.
I love it. And Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, and I will probably pick up before too long. I don't know why I don't have them sitting on the shelf now, but the Espresso 51 is also really good. I like the Espresso one.
By the way, guys, I love your names. Check out some of the names here, my spooky friends. And please go to this site. I will put that, all their links on when the episode drops, so you'll be able to check it out. I love Omen, Clairvoyant, Nightmare Fuel. I love Mischievous, Wiccan, Espresso Radio. What is it? Espresso Radioactive Zone?
No, Espresso 51.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm looking at this on I'm looking at it right now. Yeti Cold Brew, Seance, which that has a tie-in, little teaser, has a little tie-in in today's episode, and Shadow Jack Pumpkin Spice. Guys, they got you into the pumpkin. I thought you wouldn't do pumpkin. Everyone does, but no, I get it.
I'll have to. It's not my favorite. We picked it up. We picked it up last season because we're like, all right, we'll offer it. To me, the pumpkin spice coffee is probably more of what a creamer flavor should do than the coffee flavor. I think. I can't say that's our best label.
Well, sure. So let me ask you this: what surprised you, Brian and Brad, the most when you started this, and what was kind of a nice, like, oh, that worked out, So let's start with the first question. Like, what really surprised you when you started this? You're like, I didn't know that was going to work like that.
So much for me doing a lot of the reach out and working on the marketing and the sales. There's just it was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. But now I think I've captured a few ideas and systems to be a little more efficient and better at that. I appreciate that a lot more now versus what seeing these other brands and the small businesses are trying. And that's, it's a lot of work. It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Absolutely. Brian, how about you?
The marketing is difficult, especially I don't consider myself a social media guru at all. And I mean, quite honestly, until just the last few years, I've never had a single, I just got a Facebook account 3 months ago. My life avoided it. I mean, I've had Instagram and stuff. So we've posted stuff on Instagram, but I just have not. And the only reason I got a Facebook account was I wanted to go on a marketplace. So I had to have an account to get on the marketplace. But the marketing is difficult. Because there are some monster brands out there that have their branding is fantastic, and those guys have done a wonderful job. And actually, being overseas in the contracting world, I'm very familiar with a couple of those guys that started up the Black Rifle brand. We've crossed some of the same paths over there, so those guys, they knocked it out of the park. And of course, everybody wants to be the next Black Rifle, but I mean that was a perfect scenario at a perfect time with guys that were motivated to do it. This was more, Brad and I live in Missouri, he lives in New York State, and this was just a good way for us to get together and do something where we're talking more during the week than we have in years past. And
I love it.
So it was really more something fun to do with my brother, just to be able to do something like this.
And
I'd love to have it go through the roof, but if it doesn't, it doesn't. We're just having fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that attitude because as you get older and stuff, you want to be with family. You want to, and this is a great way, like you said. If it blows up, awesome. If it's a nice side hustle, it can help your retirement.
And that's just it. Yep,
that's even better. I mean that. like when I did this podcast, I was just looking to do it for fun, and now it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
Like I didn't expect people in like freaking Guam to be listening to this podcast, Australia and Europe and Canada, and I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. But that's because it's a niche, right? I
Right.
kind of stay in the pocket of the Midwest, but I also do stuff from all over the world, like I said, but to me, it's just something I can do to, have fun. And if it blows up, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. I enjoy what I'm doing. And that's what the love comes into your brand, right? People can actually talk to a real person and say
Right.
like, hey, Brian or Brad, I love your coffee, but why don't you try this? Or why don't you do that? And good luck reaching the Starbucks. They're going to be like, yes, talk to this guy, the 20 millionth man on the deal team who has no freaking clue
Yeah.
and just throws it in the trash or deletes your email. But I know you guys are right on top of it. So that is awesome. So, Brad, how about a good thing? Obviously, getting together with your brother, that's a good thing. Anything else that, that surprised you? Like, oh, that's pretty cool.
I guess a really cool story was since I'm fairly close to Buffalo, they do their Nickel City Con every year, comic book and horror fest. So we had a booth up there last year and was talking to people, handing out samples, having a good time. This guy came up, started talking to me, and here it was Miko Hughes from the little boy.
Nice.
He was also, I had a pretty good line off Kindergarten Cop. So, so I hung out and talked with him a bit, and I've got a signed bag of Wiccan right over here that I'm pretty happy with.
Nice. Love it.
That was a lot of fun. We sold a lot of coffee and talked to a whole lot of horror and comic book fans that weekend.
Yeah, that sounds great. And being a nerd myself, which I fully admit, I used to play D&D back in the day. Man, you had that caffeine going. You got to be like really in the pocket, because you got to make those hard decisions. You don't want to be killed by a bunch of orcs in a room. Now we're getting too geeky. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I played. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, there we go. So, Brian, how about you?
As far as I wasn't able to make it out to the show that Brad was at. I wish I could have been there because he did send me some really neat pictures of some of the actors from the horror movies. To me, again, outside of working with Brad, it's fun working in the paranormal field just because my favorite movie genre is horror, and it always has been. But I've always been I'm probably the biggest skeptic there is out there. So I've love paranormal stories, love a good ghost story, love a good conspiracy theory, but I'm a skeptic until I'm involved with it, I guess, or until I see it for myself. And so that's been kind of fun because since we started, I've started listening to some more podcasts like yours. I've been listening to some true crime stuff. So it's kind of changed even the listening that I do for the last year.
Nice. Brad, did you have anything else to offer? I think I might have interrupted you. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to think, like I was going to say, as of recently, I've been reaching out through Instagram, and it's been a big push lately. I've been working and trying to talk to a lot of paranormal investigators, and I've gotten a lot of ideas from them. I'm working with, she was just in a magazine, paranormal magazine here in April, Angela Gibson. And we're working on collaborating with her on a label. And one of her, she was telling me that during an investigation, their biggest need is, it's not so much the late night, because you get the excitement of the investigations, but the next day when you're going through all the footage and the files and the audios looking for, those voices and the evidence of everything they've seen. And so, yeah, coffee's massively important for that. So we're going to work with a few more investigators like that to get our name out.
Nice. Well, come to me, my friends, because I've interviewed several paranormal investigators on the show from all over the country. And that would be my next question. what would you recommend while what coffee brand, Brad, I'll start with you. Would you recommend? They're on a long investigation, what would you recommend?
Well, personally, I'm a Nightmare Fuel guy. If you need a little extra juice of caffeine, I would say go Clairvoyant. Your lighter roasts have, in general, coffee-wise, your lighter roasts have more caffeine in it. The process actually burns off the caffeine. So I'd say you probably want your Clairvoyant. We are working on an extra calf label here that's going to be branded specifically for investigators. Got a couple ideas on that just haven't worked themselves all the way to the end, but that's one way we're going to be going.
Nice. Brian, how about you? What do you think?
I'm gonna say Espresso 51. I think if you really need the caffeine, the super grind, the super fine ground espresso, and I make it in a drip coffee pot, so I don't even make it out of an espresso machine. So
nice.
I think Espresso 51 would be the one that would keep me going longer.
Nice. So let me ask you this. Now, Brad, you talked about you're doing the editing, and we all, a lot of people who do it. I used to do it. Ugh, it's horrible. I hate it. Anyway, but you gotta stay focused. Otherwise, you're putting stuff out there, and it's gonna be like people like what, whatever. That doesn't sound so great. But one of the things, the coffee I had to cut back was it gave me the jitters. I'd be like shaking like that, right? I'd be like, okay, maybe I got to ease back a little bit. And you don't want to be doing that editing, right? Because you'd be like, God knows what editing stuff you're going to get. What would you recommend of your brands to kind of bring them down a little bit to be like, hey, okay, why don't you try this now? You did the espresso, you did the Nightmare Fuel. How about, something to bring you down?
Bring it down. I mean, I guess water, man. If you want to, I'm just full throttle caffeine, so I just roll past it. That's my jam.
Okay.
Brian, same thing with water.
No, I think any of the dark roasts, roasts have less caffeine than the lighter roasts do. It's probably why. Not only do I like the darker roast flavor, but I think any of the darker roasts would be a good long-term sustainment. If you're really not needing that initial boost, it would keep you going through the afternoon.
Nice. I love it. So let's get to the most important fact. All right, I'm on your website. I want to order. How do I order? I get it. You just put it in the cart and stuff. But like, what if I'm just trying to figure out what should I order? Nightmare Fuel, Espresso 51, maybe a dark roast. What do you guys have on your site? Yeah, maybe one of each, maybe all of them. Like
anything over $30 is free shipping.
There you go. I was going to say that too. So how do you recommend like looking at your website to kind of, because you guys have some great descriptions, anything you can add more. So when they hear this and they're ordering, they can be like, oh, okay, let me take a look.
Well, we do have a pop-up test that comes up if I can't remember the exact questions on it, that'll roll through the different flavors and we'll make suggestions based on what your preferences are. So at the end of that, we'll tell you if you should have an Omen or a Clairvoyant or a Nightmare Fuel or whatnot. So I suggest go on there, take the test, and find out what we suggest.
Nice. Oh, by the way, I'm looking at your website right now, and you guys have a really, really good description of what it is. I love that. And also, you looks like you have some discounts. So like you guys said, what discounts is? I'm a first-time guy. I'm coming on there. What, like, can I get a discount, or how much do I have to order to get one, or what do I do?
You go on there, you can sign up, get I can't remember if it's a 10 or 15% discount. So put in your email, become part of the our paranormal society, if you want to call it that. Then I believe there's another discount if you do the test, and if you keep an ear out on Instagram with us or Facebook. I always put specials of that out there. Also, you sign up, you'll be on the email group, and there are different opportunities for discounts and specials there.
Nice. Brian, anything to add to that?
Well, if you do order, you get a handwritten note and some decals from me.
All right. Now that's super cool. That's awesome. See, that's personal. That's what I love about it. Yeah.
It is, and it's something that's kind of I've gotten busy with some stuff, so I'm behind on a few. So if anyone that's ordered recently, they should be expecting it in the mail here soon. Like tonight, I need to get wrapped up with all of that.
There's your homework for tonight. Brian has to do that. Have a beer, whatever your favorite beverage of choice, and get those things rocking out. I love it. So I ordered. I love it. I signed up for your newsletter. I got it. I took your test. I did everything. How long does it take? Hey, man, I need my coffee. When am I going to get this?
It's on your doorstep within a week.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. That is awesome.
And you can do the subscription. Not all of them are available. You can do subscription for Omen, and you can set it up. You want it? It just depends on how often you go through a bag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's another discount with that.
Yeah, I'll go through a 12-ounce bag in about a week. So every week I have another bag that shows up in the box.
Yeah. Again, depends how much you drink. Order as much as you can, guys, because these guys are busy, but you want to order as much as you can because it's great coffee. You guys sold me. I'm sold. Let me ask you this one other thing with your coffee brand. I see swag, so you guys can get hats. I'm still waiting for my mug, Brad.
Okay. It's on its way. I got it ordered for you this week.
Thank you, sir. That's very nice of you. Anyway, we got some swag, so they can get hats, T-shirts, mugs. That's awesome. Oh, you got your T-shirt? Yes, I saw that. That is an awesome T-shirt. Yeah, so that's something you'd be on the lookout for too. So hey, get some coffee. Maybe you want to get it. Maybe you want a hat. Hey, you need a new mug. Can never have enough coffee mugs. I know that. I break mine all the time. And get a shirt, get a hoodie. While you're at it, right?
The coffee warmer or the 10, 20-ounce mug is actually really nice. The label turned out great on that. Our logo is pretty cool.
Yeah. That it looks very nice. I love all your swag too. It looks very, very nice. The shirts look comfortable and all that good stuff. I do have a question. None of your coffee is haunted, right? So I don't open the bag and a curse comes out, right? I
can't confirm nor deny that.
No, we may have somebody coming to the house if we tell you that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there you go. There's a buyer beware. Just an extra thing that Brian and Brad put in there. Hey, let's put an evil spirit in there and see what happens.
Some people might really enjoy that. So
they probably would.
I don't want to say it's not going to happen because maybe they're looking for it.
I just a really quick story I thought was really interesting. So when I talk to paranormal investigators, one of the things they have spirits have attached themselves when they go on an investigation, and they have brought that spirit home. And do it a lot differently. They sage or they do something to say, you cannot come home with me and everything like that. But I was talking to a paranormal investigator from Elite Vixen Paranormal out of Tennessee. And Chanel, shout out, she told me she was cooking dinner. She's making some chicken. And out of the corner of her eye, she saw a little boy, and the little boy was reaching for the chicken. And she said, I slapped it. It was like one of my kids' hands. I went, no, you can't have that, and you need to leave, sweetie. So she, I guess she said they just left. And I just think I just thought that was a really interesting story. How would you like to be making dinner and you see out the corner of your eye this spirit reaching for your chicken? Well, first of all, it's my chicken. Back off. But it's like, wow, that's interesting, right? That's crazy. That's a crazy story. I just thought that was
that's a good one.
Yeah. They tell me some really stuff that is just blows me away on some of the spirits that have come home with them and are still in their house.
Oh wow!
And they treat it like, and this is so weird. I've never. Did you guys grow up in a haunted house at all? Just kind of switching topics a little bit here.
Go ahead, Brad.
Well, obviously, I don't remember anything, but sometimes I'm about as aware as my mouse here, so things could just go past me and I wouldn't even notice it.
Oh, sure.
I mean, we grew up in the same house. It was definitely an older house.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything ever, no bumps in the night. Like I said, I'm pretty skeptical of this anyways,
Yeah, right.
and always have been.
Yeah.
But there's definitely things that have happened that I've been involved in that I can't explain. There's not an explanation to it. I wasn't alone, so other people reacted to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just some things that I can't explain. But and we may get into a story here in a little bit about where Brad and I grew up. That's where one of these incidents happened. But at the house, our house was an older house, but I don't remember ever having any vibes like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let's get right into that. I was going to ask you guys if either of one of you have had a paranormal experience or experienced, many paranormal events.
So back, we grew up in a little town in Pennsylvania, about an hour and a half from where Brad lives right now. Small little forestry town. And I was probably 9 or 10 years old.
Mm.
So at the time, and I don't know where Brad was. Brad's 3 years younger than me, and I don't know where he was, but I know he wasn't with me. I was out at my grandma and grandpa's house, and their house is even older than what our house was out in the country. I was with my cousins. One cousin was the same age as me, and her older sister's 2 years or 3 years older than us. We were up, and grandma and grandpa were in Florida. So they were down to they were down visiting family for a wedding.
Hmm.
The only people at the house, me and my two cousins and their mom, my aunt, was there watching us. And she was somewhere in the house, or she wasn't with us. We're upstairs doing, 9, 10, 12-year-olds that you're not supposed to go through, and looking through closets, just putting on, grandpa's 1970s rain jacket and all this stuff.
Sure.
So in this room, the wall behind me, like if there was a doorway in the middle of that wall that was open. Directly across from that doorway is a full-length mirror and between that was the bed. So we're all standing in front of that mirror, laughing, putting on, hats, or putting on, grandma's glasses, and just fooling around. Somebody walked past that door. And I can remember 100% to this day, somebody wearing, it could have been Jay Leno. It was blue denim shirt, blue denim jeans, walked from the one side to the bathroom side towards the stairs side, like they walked past that door at just a regular pace. The only reason I know it happened was because all three of us ducked under the bed. Simultaneously, we all hit the floor. It scared all of us.
Yeah.
And and I know it was a guy, and brown hair. I could see it even to this day.
Wow.
No clue who it was. Wasn't a relative. Didn't say anything. And there wasn't anybody at the house. Besides my aunt, she was there. We went running outside and found her and tried. Nobody believes 3 kids coming out saying, "Hey, we just saw a ghost upstairs."
Yeah. Right.
But, and I mean, fast forward. So that was when we were probably 10 to 12 years old. When I graduated high school, I didn't go back to my hometown for 22 years. I was just back in that same hometown for a family reunion this past May, and met with one of the same cousins that was there, and started talking to her. And I was like, "Hey, do you remember way back when we were upstairs?" Actually, the reunion was at the same house.
Yeah.
So I said, "You remember we were upstairs and we were by the mirror and we were dressing?" She's like, "Yeah, when we saw the ghost." So I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was. Somebody walked past that doorway, and it scared all of us.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that is a story I hear a lot from my guest I have on. I hear stories too of one of my guests when she said she was like 6 years old. This older man passed through a wall and went like right walked right past her
Mm-hmm.
and went through the other wall. And she was thinking, it's a dream. And she went to her mom. And, she's 6, right? Like when you guys were younger. And her mom was like, "Oh, honey, it's nothing, nothing. Don't worry about it." And then they bought a rocking chair for her room because she liked to sit in the rocking chair and read. And so then she'd be in her room and she would look up some nights and the rocking chair would be rocking by itself. Okay.
Yeah, that's the stuff that you just
right. So she told her dad, and her dad went, "Oh, honey, it's an old house and it just happens." But then she said, she looks out and at the trash was that rocking chair. Her dad just threw it out. And she fast forward, she turns 18 and she's really into the paranormal, she says, because of that. Why was that? What really happened? And she became a paranormal investigator. And she's like, "Mom, Dad, what was really going on?" She goes, "Well, honey, I didn't want to tell you when you were 6 so you wouldn't freak out on us, but this house is haunted as hell." And it's like 3 ghosts, and she went through, and she's like, "Mom, oh my God," So, like, to her, it was just normal, like coming home and the cupboards would be open, and she'd be like, "Oh, okay, Mom, Dad," they didn't close it. And then, she would hear them at night. She'd hear footsteps at night. She'd hear all this stuff. And her parents, they're trying to steer her. And I'm like, "Girl, I would have been out of that house." I'd have been like,
oh yeah,
we're moving. Let's get in the, car and we're gone. But they lived in that house. And her brother lives in that house right now. And it's still haunted. And we just accept it. Whatever. Nobody's hurting anybody. No ghosts. Like, it's not terrible.
And I understand that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
Oh, no. Go ahead. What you were saying about the ghost.
And I understand. I can get on board with places that have a residual. Something that it's just a period in time. Yeah. It's a snapshot that just replays. There's no interaction. It's just because even though I'm skeptical of a lot of the stories that I hear, I'm not foolish enough to think that energy or spirits or something, can't attach to a location or a place or, and just, you have the 120-year-old house in the basement where you've had 5 generations of families live there, tragedy and everything else. And there's just a replay of time. And that's, I can fully get on board with that. So I can see where places would have a residual. Where it gets really kind of scary is when it's a not a residual and it's just where it's actually interactive. That's where it really kind of makes your hair stand up.
Right, exactly. And I just had paranormal investigators on yesterday from Pennsylvania, and they were talking about they went to the Lizzie Borden house. The Lizzie Borden house. And they have, my episode will be coming up soon in a couple weeks with them. And they just talked about, they were in the rooms. You can stay in the rooms at Lizzie Borden, her room, parents' room. And they highly recommend to go to it. One of the gentlemen was a guide. He was a tour guide for it forever. And he just loves it. I mean, he spent like years in that house. And he knows every nook and cranny and all this stuff. And they have all these crazy, like, voice recordings and all this other stuff that they say, like, it's just unbelievable. And it's intelligent haunting because he tells a story when he got this voice recording and he goes there not every year but quite a bit, and he had a voice recording that says plainly, a woman's voice says plainly, "The boy is back." And he was in the room when that recording happened. They knew it was him from him being there. I said, "Dude, I'm out." Like, no, it was just some friendly way of saying, "I know who you are." And isn't that crazy?
That is
right.
From back in Pennsylvania, the other one that I've always really, really loved the video of it. I nothing to do with it, and you probably know it, but it's from Gettysburg, and it was somebody filming the tree line there, and it was about dusk, and there's just silhouettes and figures merging and going back in, emerging, going back. I mean, and it's not just one. There's multiples, and they're like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. It seems very very legit. It seems very just they were just filming the area and it just started happening. So it doesn't seem like it was any kind of a fakery or anything. But it's because obviously Gettysburg, was one of the most bloody battles of the Civil War. So plenty of history there. But it's a fantastic video, and I have no idea who had done it, but I'm sure everyone has seen it because it's pretty popular.
Yes, it's very popular. Brad, did you want to add anything before we move on to our topic?
I definitely wasn't there for the ghost at Grandma and Grandpa's house. From my experience, though, actually, we've been told by a couple people. One, this individual has done work with Deepak Chopra and some other training such as that. But as soon as he met my wife, he knew my daughter he said she was a traveler. She travels in her sleep. And she was guided by, it'd be my wife's grandpa and actually my aunt, would have been the sister of the aunt that, my brother's sister. So Brian was hanging out with there, and they've guided her while she was younger and as she traveled, and had plenty of conversations with her late at night. And she swears it was Matt and Darlene, and can't tell her any different to this day. And we've had people just say, yeah, she travels and she's been all over the place. So it's she just has that personality. And that's always been really cool to me.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I've spoken to mediums, scryers, and what always cracks me up is I always ask them, should they do tarot card reading and everything like that? It always cracks me up because I always ask them, what is the two things that people ask you? It's relationships and money. Yeah. So it's like, am I going to have a good relationship? Am I in a good relationship? Is this going to happen? Is that? And then not, am I going to be rich? Am I going to be fine? Is there going to be something? And she gets that all the time. And she's like, these are not accurate. Like, she's one of those people that's not a huckster or a con person. You know what I mean? She's just like, hey, this isn't like real. This is for fun. Just know they don't take it with a grain of salt. But it's just for fun. And she's read some things that she's unfortunately came up with bad news. And then she's got to like talk these people down, be like, like it's just, it's just the cards. But anyway, I just find that super interesting that people have that skill. And I know a lot of other people are sensitive where they can come into a room and be like, oh boy, you got some real problems here. And, we need to do something. And I've had some really, really creepy stories of people coming into homes. Even a lady came into a bedroom and she said, who died here? And the couple was like, how do you know my, father died here? And they're like, well, he's still here. And, he's trying to talk to you. And so, they're like, oh, okay. That's why I always feel someone's watching me, not in a bad way, but I feel somebody's watching me. And I felt like they talk about one story where they were sleeping, the husband was sleeping, and all of a sudden he just woke up. He just like out of a sleep. And it turned out he had the burner on his stove. And he was like making some spaghetti or something, boiling the water. And it had boiled over. And so he woke up and he was able to, take care of it. But, he was like, she said, I bet that was your dad waking him up, to do that. And I'm pretty sure it was. And it's just like, so there's some good stories like that and some other creepy stories where people are being pushed down steps or being assaulted or something. So that's why I love it. It's so fantasy. Even, like a skeptic like yourself, Brian, can sometimes go, I don't know. Right? Well, I just don't know.
we took a tour of the Jefferson City Penitentiary a few years back. So we actually did the guided ghost tour there. And they give you some time throughout the tour where you can just kind of, stand still and, record or take photos or do what you want to do.
Yeah. And
I was taking just candid, just photos around the area. And I still have the photo, and it's in all three of us, myself, my wife, and my daughter were there, and we 100% feel like we caught an apparition of somebody standing in the jail cell down in the area where, and this was years ago, somebody was murdered either on that landing or in that cell. Mm-hmm. And I was just taking photos just with my cell phone. There's a silhouette, and it looks like a silhouette of a black man standing. Just if you can picture what a silhouette of a black man would look like in a dark jail cell, that's what it looked like. And all three of us, when we seen it, we're like, "Oh, there's something there. That's there."
Nice. That's interesting, because I've done episodes on Missouri State Penitentiary. If you ever get a chance to go there, it was known as the 100 Acres of Blood. I mean, there was so much.
That's in Jeff City. That's the one.
Yeah, that's so. Everyone on my paranormal investigators have gone there and caught stuff. And then Ohio State Reformatory, aka
that's the one I want to
Shawshank Redemption. There. Yeah, that's what I want to go out to. That's something people have said they've been touched, they've been pushed, they've got an apparition, and it's hard if you're a skeptic to walk out of there and go, it's just the wind. It's just like, someone is a recorder, or, it's like, no, there's something going on here. Yeah, that's crazy. That's unbelievable. So, speaking of all this paranormal stuff, I chose a spooky topic for this week. I think it fits in with one of your brands, your Seance brand. It's a decaf. So, like I said, if you want to come down a little bit, I was going to do your Espresso 51, but Area 51, that's a really long topic. And if you guys ever want to come back on, we can do that, or do one of the other blends. We'll definitely do that.
That's a place that I'd love to have some firsthand experience with. I really would.
Yeah, absolutely. So, seances is our topic today. So, for centuries, people have been trying to reach back to former loved ones who have passed and find the meaning of life after death. One way is to conduct a seance. By the way, buy their Seance brand coffee. There you go, guys. There's your tag. In this episode, we'll discuss
coffeeco.com.
Yes, there we go. Always branding. We'll discuss seances, their history, and the controversial findings. So, Brian and Brad, what is a seance, right? Is a meeting of people to talk with dead people. They're holding a seance this evening. They basically say, this is their vocabulary, which I think is hilarious. And it's related to lost souls, spirits, ghosts. So really, if someone says they're holding a seance, you basically know you have a group of people together trying to contact the undead or ghost or a spirit. Maybe you have a loved one, maybe not. So a seance experience, and this is from author Daniel Eckert, the author of Mystery of Seances. He says, and this is really interesting, he did this with his wife, which I thought was kind of, okay. I don't know if I would do this with my wife. My wife's not into the paranormal at all. She supports me and she loves me for this, but she's like, keep me out of it, which is fine. So he said he once conducted a seance with a small group of paranormal researchers working in a particularly haunted hotel in Maryland. The research team worked with a medium to call forth the spirits by using, here we go, Ouija board. Guys, stay away from Ouija boards. Please do not use Ouija board
with that.
Oh, be careful, guys. Just be careful. If you want to, that's okay, but I'm not responsible.
We were going to get trademarked, so we couldn't do it.
Oh, okay, there you go. All right. They also use pendulum bottles, which is basically just a bottle that swings back and forth. It may have some type of crystal in it. It may have some type of liquid in it or something. Who knows, right? And finally, a deep trance. At first, the contact, what they'll do is swaying of the pendulum. So they'll put these pendulums out, and they'll just put them there, and then they'll ask, hey, with the spirit, touch this pendulum. So one of the things they first saw when he was doing this, which would kind of freak me out, I don't know what you guys, they started to sway. So they started talking, they were at a haunted hotel in Maryland, they started talking to these spirits, and they saw, these pendulums sway. And remember, they do this by candlelight. It's in a completely dark room, except for your candles. By the way, you have to use white candles. Do not use black candles. Black candles symbolize evil. Do not do that.
Okay.
So one of the things they saw by candlelight, and again, man, I don't know if I could do this. They saw a presence go by one of the candles, saw a shadow from the candlelight. However, soon the building creaked with sounds of soft footsteps. The air grew chill, and the Ouija board began to bring messages for the guests. Okay, so are you guys still in this room? I don't know if I am. Are you guys, Brian, Brad, you guys still in this room? You saw spirit, Ouija board going off.
I think I'm
working towards the door.
going to ride the lightning.
Brad?
I'm working towards the door.
All right, me and Brad are working towards the door. We're backing up. Brian's just looking at us and going, "Wimps."
That's the reason you're there. If you're going to do it, that's what you want to have happen.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because most seances, I have to tell my spooky friends and you guys, none of them really don't work out for the most part. So the evening reaches crescendo as our medium sat in a trance. Her face illuminated by a single candle, and she began to receive names, answers to questions, and stories from what seemed to be similar to Brad, a daughter with Traveler. She was traveling to different places. As she spoke, it seemed, oh man, this is where I'm out. She spoke, it seemed as her face shifted in the light from that of a young woman to that of a grandmotherly figure, to that of a small boy, and to that of a bespectacled man. Okay, guys, me and Brad, I guess, are reaching for the doorknob. Brian, you ride the lightning.
At that point, you may be pushing the chair back a little bit.
I totally get it, because if I saw someone's face changed from a young woman to an older woman to a young boy to a man in glasses, I'd be like,
that's like
okay.
Every horror movie from the early 90s. That's the scene.
Mm-hmm. You bet. Love 90s story, by the way. Slowly, the stream of voices coming from the medium receded, and her face became hers once more. Well, that's good. The candles burned more brightly, and the room felt warmer almost instantly. There was a sense of a real connection with something larger than this world on that night. So that was an experience I got from this author about seances, which, again, I've spoken to people who have done seances, and it's hit or miss. It's really, where you are, what you're doing. I did a little mini-sode on stories of Ouija boards, and there's never a good one. There's never a good one. He's just, and how, I think is it still Hasbro or Parker Brothers who has the patent? Who has the patent for Ouija boards?
Parker Brothers.
I think it's Parker Brothers, yeah.
Yeah. And they still sell it, which, this was so funny. I was interviewing someone from Switzerland, and they don't believe in Ouija boards in Switzerland. I don't know why. They just don't. And she said, they sell it as a toy? Like, she didn't understand that. Like I said, you can go into a Walmart, no Toys R Us doesn't exist anymore. When you can go to a Walmart, whatever, there it is.
Well, John,
right with the other games.
John, do you remember the movie Witchboard?
Yeah,
that was a pretty freaky movie, and it's probably a 90s movie. There's a newer one called a Ouija now, which is
they have the Ouija series.
But that movie Witchboard, I can remember it actually, and again, horror movies, it's got to be a good horror movie to really be a scary movie. But I remember that one having some pretty good jump scare in it.
Yeah, it's just something I will never mess with. So I just will not. I wouldn't even be in the same room with it, because I'm just, I don't know. Whether you believe it or not, I just think there's some things you just don't mess with, right?
I think you're looking for a bad reaction when you do. You're looking for something to happen. You're poking the bear.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things with seances and everything is, so I wanted to get into a really famous case. And if you guys haven't heard about these twin sisters, they're actually from rural New York, but this is 1848. This is the famous case about them. This is what kind of set people like, do I believe in it or not believe it? So in the year 1848, Kate and Maggie Fox, sisters from rural New York, set the world alight with their unique form of spirit communication. In answer to the sisters' questions, spirits would respond, making bangs, knocks, raps, and sound out words. This was the beginning of spiritualism. So in the 1800s, as you know, a lot of people lost. I mean, it was common in your house to lose your brother, your sister at a young age, maybe your father, due to many diseases, many things. It's not obviously, as we know, guys, the care that we have today,
Right.
mental
Life expectancy
and
was 42.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, you know, you just, we're kind of like, okay, we're already living a good life. That's the way I look at it. So one of the things with these sisters, they would perform sold out theater shows. So they would be, and they did it on both sides of the Atlantic. So they would go into these theaters at the time, and, you know, people would come up and they would be like, hey, I want to talk to my Aunt Millie. And they'd be like, okay. And then they would pretend, well, you'll find out and here, not to give any spoiler alert, but they would be like, oh, okay, you know, Aunt Millie says this, Aunt Millie says that. And they were just, you know, huge. I mean, this was the huge show for them. And they represented an exciting and bold new future where women were at the center of the spiritual movement and in positions of authority as mediums, channeled spirits. And one of the biggest things to remember is, remember the 1800s, men were not really nice to women. We tend to stay in the kitchen, right? Kind of attitude. But they worked on different causes, like the suffragist movement, abolitionist movement, with slavery and everything. So they would like try to do all these different causes. And, you know, so they were doing some good things with it. And in their wake, the spiritual movement grew to one of the most, and this is crazy, one of the most popular religious groups of its era. So spiritualism, in other words, talking to the dead, was huge. I mean, that was almost as big as, being a Catholic or a Lutheran or whatever, right? I mean, just unbelievable. And the spiritual movement, though, was further bolstered by a high-profile supporters like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Yes, that guy who wrote Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
He was a huge supporter of it. Frank Baum, he was another famous author. And my favorite, Lincoln is my favorite president, by the way, First Lady Mary Todd Lincoln. She was not my favorite first lady. She's kind of out there. She's a very interesting person. Let's just say it that way. But that's an entirely new podcast. And her husband, Lincoln, believed in spiritualism. He totally believed that there's a way to talk to the dead. And they would perform. This is why the White House is haunted, by the way. People have said that many, many times. He performed the seances in the White House. So he would always bring these sisters in and the Fox sisters in, and they performed in the White House. They performed in palaces. They performed anywhere famous. I mean, it was unbelievable what these people were. However, this guy was from Wisconsin, by the way, Harry Houdini. I'm sure you're familiar with Harry Houdini. Oh, yeah. He did not believe in this. So he spent his time basically trying to show this is all fraud and all fake. And even though the Fox sisters would be like,
coming from a guy whose whole shtick is breaking out of handcuffs.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Right? His whole thing
is with the keys somewhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was funny about Houdini. He would go to these, and I thought it was kind of funny. He would go to these seances and be like a heckler. He'd be like, she's doing that. She's doing that. I saw that. Because he knew all the tricks, right? You know, because he did card tricks. Sure. He did escape tricks. He did all these crazy tricks. So he knew all their tricks. So they would be like tapping each other on the foot, like, hey, say something. He would say, I saw that. So imagine these sisters, they're like with Lincoln and famous people, and he's going, hey. That's the party I want to be invited to, right, guys?
Those four in the same room, that'd be great.
So one of the things that it really grew was because of the trauma visited upon the nation from the American Civil War and the First World War. Seances just basically blew up, and it became into ordinary Americans. So, like, maybe somebody that had a seance in their house to talk to. They lost their son to war, right? Mm-hmm. And that's dramatic. Maybe they lost their both sons, because remember, it was brother fighting brother. So, maybe they lost them both, and they want to talk to them again. So that really exploded, where people would try to do that, and they bring a lot of con artists in, unfortunately. But one of the things, when they try to contact all these different sons, daughters, whoever who died, they bring these spirit boards in. Now, these are different from Ouija boards. These are like what we'd call demon boards today, which if you go and look online, you can go on eBay and buy a demon board, which is supposedly full of demons, and you're not supposed to use it, but they sell it anyway. So I don't know, whatever you want to say. I guess
you can buy those debit boxes too.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. You can buy cursed dolls.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. You buy cursed dolls. You buy dev boxes. So one of the things they would do too is when they would bring these mediums in, they would conduct seances in people's homes. So now it was no longer you have to go to a theater or you have to be invited to the White House or to a palace. You could have a medium come over to your house or your neighbor's house and be like, hey, let's try to contact our children and everything. And the funny thing is it was a lot of different blends resulted in it. Speaking of blends of coffee, you guys have all these different practices. So nobody knew what the other person was doing. So you might be, I don't know, you go over to your neighbor's house and he does something, or the man or the woman, whoever is the medium there, does something completely different from what you did last night, right? And you're like, wait a minute, how's it still working? Why is it's just really confusing. And one of the things they say is that's where it's kind of the downfall, right? Mm-hmm. That started the downfall, because nobody really knew what the other person was doing. They just were, after a while, you're just making it up, right? Mm-hmm. And that really sucks, because back in the 1800s, 1900s, you had to work really, really, really hard to make a living, right? It's not in today's world where you can be like, oh, I'll just move to another city and I'll get a better paying job or whatever, right? So these people were basically conned out of a lot of money. Now, one of the things that I really like is they now still do it, but now it's a more scientific way. So, for example, the modern spiritualist seance can look remarkably like, believe it or not, a Sunday morning church service. So you could really have people come in, and you have a group of people, and you sit around the table with a medium and a spirit board and a candlelight, and you might have a shaman there who has studied, I don't know, psychology, philosophy. I mean, they have a degree in that. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like you just have some guy down the street, Bill, who's really good at seeing things come in your house. So these people, I thought it was really interesting. And one of the things too is they have, when they have the seances now, they kind of use all this different equipment, and they have mental therapy for people. So it's like, if you go to this, it's no longer, hey, I see you tapping under the table. Oh, I saw you lift that with that wire. It's more like, okay, we're going to talk about this, get out your feelings over losing your son or your daughter, and let's try to do this professional. Isn't that interesting? It went from this really kind of huckster to now this professional.
It really is. And I just totally kind of off subject, but something along the scientific, they're using scientific equipment to make it seem legit. If you ever read the book Angels and Demons, Dan Brown, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's
Yeah, sure.
I'm pretty sure it's in that book, but he's meeting with the woman who is there's an older lady in a casket on a scientific scale that's out to the 10 100,000 in weight. The woman is in the process of dying in the book, and they're watching the scale, and when she dies, the scale drops by a few thousandths of a pound or whatever, however it was out. And the idea was in the book that was her spirit leaving her body. And the character, the character in the book, Langston, I don't remember I think it's Langston, but he didn't believe in it. But as he's watching the scale, and when she finally passes, he's like, wow, there was a decrease in, it's enough time where when she died, 7 seconds later, the scale dropped. And he's like, okay, that must have been her spirit actually leaving her body. And it's kind of a neat, if anyone hasn't read that story, that's a fantastic book to read. It's been years since I've read it, but that if you can have, if you have
something you should know,
that's where it comes out. That's where it really adds some validity to what you're trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is really interesting. It's called 21 grams. So supposedly the soul weighs 21 grams. And the reason they found that out is because a scientist back in the early 1900s was looking at these bodies and everything, and he kept on coming up with, as shortly after they die, they're 21 grams lighter. And he was using different measurements at that time. Sure. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would this? And then other doctors and scientists were saying, well, they're evacuating fluids. That's all this stuff. And he's like, but everybody? Like, he named like hundreds. And he says, like, that doesn't make sense. Why would everybody, no matter their size, their weight, whatever, have the same number? Like, and it's really interesting. I'm going to do a episode on that and talk about this because
that'd be interesting.
It's mind blowing. You're just like, it's just, again, one of those things you can't describe. So anyway, that's seances. I just wanted to do a little topic on it, kind of talk about how it went from like this big thing, having a huge religion. By the way, I didn't get to spiritualism. That's a whole different topic. Maybe if I have you guys on, we talk about that some other time. But one of the things with spiritualism, it is still today a religion, and it deals with not as much as talking to the your former loves or whatever you want to say, the undead. It deals with being more spiritual, and maybe you're not a skeptic as much as you thought you were because maybe you understand life beyond this. So it kind of deals with what is beyond this.
1 gram thing, because that's about as much coffee as you'd use in a good sized cup. So
that's really interesting. Yeah, there you go. Maybe that's a new brand for you.
Sure.
Yeah. A new flavor. Yeah, that's awesome. I just think it's really interesting that how people look at it and different points of view and everything like that. That's huge, because I think it gives you pause, like I said, say, well, what's beyond this life? Tell me a little about Paranormal Coffee, what you guys have coming up, and so I can tell my spooky friend.
What we got coming up? Let's see. We're looking for opportunities for other shows and things. More social media reach out, more. I do a lot. Since I'm running on the social media side, I'm personally reaching out to everybody that I possibly can just to say hi and get stories. I've gotten a number of great stories from investigators and other podcast hosts that everyone has just fantastic stories. Working with going to be a half calf coming out soon.
Nice.
We've got the extra calf version that we talked about earlier, which will be coming out, and also working towards the flavors, trying to find different ideas and just labels that we can do for like a French vanilla, a mocha. There's trying to think of the different like hazelnut and things like that. That'll help the investigators get through a night, or just the average Joe have some spooky average Joe.
Yeah, and if you're playing D&D too, it's not only for us paranormal people.
Yeah,
a little D&D, maybe having a horror movie festival at your house, right? You want to stay up all night and watch a bunch of horror movies or whatever, or just movies in general, you know? So, Brad, thank you so much for your time, and Brian, thanks for his time. I really appreciate this. You guys are great. I love you guys. I love this coffee brand. Like I said, I'll do everything in my power to get you into my spooky friends, and hopefully it can help you grow your business and everything. And I'd love to have you back on sometime.
Oh, absolutely. You got a cup coming, so we'll work on some other swag for you, and had a great time, and would love to be back on.
Right. So we end the show 2 ways. We say hi to your ghost, because hello, ghost. You never know. You might have a ghost. And stay spooky.
Yes.
Thanks, Brad.
Hey, see ya.
Take care.
You too.